an era where the NBA was obsessed with athleticism, one player refused to leave the ground. Andre Miller couldn't jump, wasn't explosive, and moved at his own deliberate pace. Yet during a career spanning 17 seasons, he scored over 16,000 points and finished 9th all-time in assists, with 8,524. While players like Russell Westbrook were soaring through the air, Miller was using footwork that made defenders look foolish. How did a player who could barely touch the net become one of the most effective point guards in NBA history? The answer starts in 1976 in Los Angeles, California. Young Andre wasn't blessed with natural athleticism, but he had something more valuable, an obsession with the mental side of basketball. While other kids practiced their vertical leap, Miller was in his backyard mastering the lost art of the pivot foot. His high school coach at Verbum Day, Mike Kearney, recently shared something fascinating. Most players would come to practice, wanting to work on their dunks. Andre would come and asking about footwork drills. He'd have these notebooks filled with diagrams of pivot moves. At first, I thought he was just trying to compensate for his lack of athleticism, but he was actually creating his own basketball language. During his senior year at Verbum Day, Miller did something unprecedented. In a city known for high-flying guards, he averaged 23 points and 11 assists while barely leaving the ground. College scouts would visit games expecting to see a limitation. Instead, they witnessed something they'd never seen before, a player who made athleticism irrelevant. But here's where things get interesting. Despite dominating high school basketball in Los Angeles, most major colleges passed on Miller. Their scouting reports all said the same thing. Too slow, can't jump, won't translate to the next level. Only Rick Majerus at the University of Utah saw past the surface. At Utah, Miller didn't just play basketball, he reinvented it. While other point guards were trying to play faster and jump higher, he was developing something entirely different. His college teammates recently revealed that practice sessions with Miller were like taking a masterclass in basketball psychology. He would spend hours studying how defenders moved, learning their tendencies, figuring out how to use their athleticism against them. Think about this. By his senior year, he was leading the nation in assists while moving at what looked like half speed. More incredibly, he had the highest field goal percentage of any guard in college basketball, despite barely being able to dunk. His secret: Miller had mastered what his teammates called the old man game before he was even old enough to drink. March 15, 1999, NBA scouts packed the Utah arena to watch Miller face a highly athletic guard from Arizona. What they saw that night changed how teams would evaluate point guards forever. Miller scored 36 points without a single dunk or three-pointer. He did it with pump fakes so convincing that defenders would leap out of the building while he stayed planted on the ground. Rick Majerus, his college coach, recently shared something nobody knew until now. We had NBA scouts telling us Andre wouldn't last 3 years in the league. Too slow, they said. Couldn't jump, they said. I told them they were evaluating the wrong things. Andre wasn't playing the same sport as everyone else. He was playing chess while they were playing checkers. The Cleveland Cavaliers selected Miller 8th overall in the 1999 NBA draft, but questions remained. Could this ground-bound style work against the world's best athletes? His first NBA training camp provided the answer. Veteran guard Brevin Knight, known for his quickness, recently revealed, "First day of practice, Andre made me look like I was standing still. I'm jumping all over the place, and he's killing me without ever leaving the floor." That's when I knew this kid was different. But what Miller developed over his first few NBA seasons wasn't just a playing style. It was a complete reinvention of the point guard position. By 2001, he had mastered something the league had never seen before, a post game that made his lack of athleticism an advantage. Using footwork that looked like it came from a 1950s instructional video, he was embarrassing defenders who could jump twice as high as him. His former Cavaliers teammate Jim Jackson recently shared something nobody knew. Teams would assign their most athletic defenders to guard Andre, thinking they could overwhelm him with quickness. But that's exactly what he wanted. The more athletic you were, the more likely you were to fall for his fakes. March 15, 2003, the moment that forced the NBA to take notice. Matched up against Jason Kidd, arguably the most athletic point guard of that era, Miller put on a clinic that left the basketball world stunned. Using nothing but pump fakes, pivot moves, and changes of pace, he scored 28 points and dished out 14 assists. After the game, Kidd said something revealing. "It's like trying to guard your dad at the YMCA, except your dad is somehow scoring at will in an NBA game." But what made Miller truly special wasn't just his scoring. It was his understanding of tempo. In an era where the NBA was getting faster and faster, he found success by going slower. Recently released practice footage shows Miller working on what his trainers called the slow game. He would intentionally move at half speed, lulling defenders to sleep before suddenly changing pace. Think about this. During the 2004 to 2005 season with Denver, Miller averaged 13.6 points per game while having a lower vertical leap than some high school players. He had mastered 3 moves that nobody could stop: First was the old man fake, a subtle shoulder movement that sent defenders flying. Second was the turtle drive, deliberately moving so slow that defenders would get impatient and foul. Third was what teammates called the Miller post, a series of pivots and fakes that made him the best post-up point guard in NBA history. January 30th, 2010. Miller's masterpiece. At age 33, when most players were losing their athleticism, he dropped 52 points on the Dallas Mavericks. The crazy part? He did it while jumping lower than some players do for their regular jump shot. Recent analysis of the game footage revealed something fascinating. Not a single one of his baskets came from athletic plays. It was all footwork, positioning, and timing. The NBA had never seen anything like it. By 2012, at age 36, Miller was still dominating games despite looking like he was playing in slow motion. Former NBA champion Chauncey Billups recently revealed, "We used to watch film of Andre and laugh. He's out there looking like he's playing in quicksand, but nobody could stop him. He broke every rule about what a point guard was supposed to be." Think about this. In an era where point guards were expected to be explosive athletes, Miller played 17 seasons barely getting off the ground. More shocking, he only missed 3 games due to injury in his first 15 years. His secret? Recently released training footage shows Miller's unique preparation method. While other players were in the weight room trying to jump higher, he was practicing pivot moves for hours, perfecting angles that made athleticism irrelevant. December 3rd, 2013. At 37 years old, Miller did something that defied logic. Matched up against Russell Westbrook, one of the most explosive athletes in NBA history, he scored 15 straight points in the fourth quarter. Former teammate Ty Lawson recently shared, "Russ was jumping out of the gym, and Dre was killing him without ever leaving the floor. It was like watching a professor teach a masterclass." But Miller's impact went beyond just scoring. He had mastered what coaches now call gravity control, the ability to manipulate defenders without speed or jumping ability. Teams would spend hours studying his film, trying to figure out how he controlled games while moving in slow motion. One NBA scout recently admitted, "We had to create new categories in our scouting reports because of Andre." How do you evaluate someone who's dominating without any of the traditional athletic tools? His methods were so effective that teams started sending their young point guards to learn from him. Chris Paul, one of the smartest players in NBA history, spent an entire summer studying Miller's techniques. Andre showed us all that basketball isn't about who's the most athletic. Paul recently shared, "It's about who can think the game at the highest level." Today's NBA still bears Miller's fingerprints. Teams now have specific drills called the Miller series, teaching young guards how to control games without relying on athleticism. At the Denver Nuggets practice facility, there's even a section of their playbook dedicated to his ground-bound techniques. Think about what Miller achieved. 8,524 assists, 9th all-time, over 16,000 points, and a career spanning 1,304 games, all while moving so slow that defenders often thought he was injured. His former coach George Karl recently revealed, "We had opposing teams call our medical staff, asking if Andre was hurt because he moved so deliberately. Meanwhile, he's out there destroying everyone without ever getting more than a few inches off the ground." But perhaps Miller's greatest legacy is how he changed NBA scouting. Teams now have a specific category called Miller Potential, looking for players who might not test well athletically but show signs of elite basketball IQ. One NBA executive recently admitted, "Before Miller, we might have passed on players who couldn't hit certain athletic benchmarks. Now we know better. He showed us that basketball intelligence can overcome any physical limitation." December 2023. At a Lakers practice facility, Miller is teaching something that looks out of place in modern basketball. Young guards, all capable of jumping out of the gym, are learning the art of staying grounded. One coach recently shared, "These kids can all dunk from the free throw line, but Andre's teaching them something more valuable, how to make that athleticism work against itself." Looking back at Miller's career, it wasn't just about playing basketball differently. It was about proving that there's more than one way to dominate the game. In a league obsessed with who could jump the highest, he showed that sometimes the smartest play was staying on the ground. And that's Andre Miller's true legacy. He didn't just survive in a league of high flyers, he thrived. He proved that in basketball, as in life, sometimes the best way to rise above is to stay grounded.